गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जना यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय श्री श्री निताई गौर चंद्र भगवान की जय। प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतेरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 1, chapter number 10, entitled The Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. Text number 6. Nadhyo vyadhyaya klesham Daiva bhutatma hetavaha Ajata shatrava bhavan Jantunam rajani karhichit Nadhyayo vyadhaya klesham Daiva bhutatma hetava Ajata shatrava bhavan Jantunam rajani karhichit Ragyi karhichit Nadhyo vyadaya klesham Daiva bhutatma hetavaha Ajata shatrava bhavan Jantunam ragyi karhichit माताएं व्याधयो क्लेशा शत्रु भगवान की कर क्लेशा शत्रु भगवान Jantanam Ragi Karhechit. Whatever translation. Na, never. Adyaha, anxieties. Vyadyaha, diseases. Kleshaha, trouble due to excessive heat or cold. Daiva Bhuta Atma, all due to this body, supernatural power, and other living beings. Hetavaha, due to the cause of Ajata Shatrau, unto one who has no enemy. Abhavan happened. Jantunam of the living beings. Ragi under the king. Karhichit at any time. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. इसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की Translation. Because of the kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold. Purport. To be non-violent to human beings and to be a killer or enemy of the poor animals is Satan's philosophy. Satan's philosophy. In this age, there is enmity towards poor animals, and therefore the poor creatures are always anxious. The reaction of the poor animals is being forced on human society, and therefore there is always the strain of cold or hot war between men, individually, collectively, or nationally. At the time of Maharaj Yudhishthir, there were no different nations, although there were different subordinate states. The whole world was united, and the supreme head, being a trained king like Yudhishthir, kept all the inhabitants free from anxiety, diseases, and excessive heat and cold. They were not only economically well to do, but also physically fit and undisturbed by supernatural power, by enmity from other living beings, and by disturbance of bodily and mental agonies. There's a proverb in Bengali that a bad king spoils the kingdom and a bad housewife spoils the family. This truth is applicable here also because the king was pious and obedient to the Lord and sages because he was no one's enemy and because he was a recognized agent of the God and therefore protected by him. All the citizens under the king's protection were, so to speak, directly protected by the Lord and his authorized agents. Unless one is pious and recognized by the Lord, he cannot make others happy who are under his care. There is full cooperation between man and God, man and nature, and this conscious cooperation between man and God and man and nature, as exemplified by King Yudhishthir, can bring about happiness, peace, and prosperity in this world. The attitude of exploiting one another, the custom of the day, will only bring misery. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीदुतापदकमलम् श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथां वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखावितांश्च नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदिशिखार भक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यमीश्वरम्। Hare Krishna. So, seeking for blessings from all the Vaishnavas here, and so that I can serve Srimad Bhagavatam and serve all of you also, and thus verify my existence. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam 1st canto 10th chapter, wherein the some description is given about how after the war is over, there is prosperity all around. So when Yudhishthir Maharaj has become the king, ultimately after a big war, the Mahabharata epic, then he ultimately has become the king, the ruler, and on the basis of that, now he is ruling the kingdom, keeping the will of the Lord and the will of the Brahmanas at the center. This is the qualifications given on the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam and also in other literatures, how to actually rule, how to actually become an ideal leader. And that's what we will try to discuss today. Before we go into that, we will see the verse. Here it is given, na adhya vyadhya. So neither there was anxiety, nor there was diseases, nor there was klesha due to daiva, bhuta, atma. Daiva means Adi Daivik, Bhuta means Adi Bhautik, Atma means Adhyatmik. So neither there was problem from within one's own mind and consciousness. People were not distressed, frustrated, suicidal tendencies. They were not going to psychiatrist. There was no need of psychiatrists. They were all jobless. There was no post also, and there was no bhuta. That means adi bhautika klesh. That means there was hardly any need of session court and then district court. Um, and there are so many levels, the high court, the supreme court, so many courts. Not much need. Whenever there was any need, they would come back to the king's kingdom directly. you know that was the way adi bhautik klesh was dealt. Nowadays adi bhautik klesh is there practically everywhere, within the house, around the house, outside of the house, then in the mohalla, in the city, in the state, within the state, outside of the state, internationally. So much of Adi Bhautika Klesh. And then Adi Devika, which is beyond control. Even if the most prosperous, richest, most powerful country, but if there is a forest fire or a cyclone, um, but then what can they do? They'll just say that just run out, just move. That's the best that you can do. So, but because they don't know how to control it, it's just beyond their capacity to control. Every now and then there is some cyclones and some tsunamis and so many news that come, and so many people die due to that. It's called as mass reactions of karma. But and who is responsible for this? Wherever the people die, the government is responsible according to the literatures, the shastra. So, but in this age wherein we see the jurisdiction of Maharaj Yudhishthir, we see how even in the previous verses we saw how even the oceans, hills, mountain, forest, creeper, all this are paying their tax to the king. They are giving taxes. How the adi daivika, adi daiva, they are the ones who are serving the king and the kingdom. So that's the control that the kings used to have in the days of yore. And due to that, there was no anxiety, there was no diseases, there was no need of long bills and so many people queuing outside of the hospitals for their diseases, getting themselves cured, and the doctors making. One doctor devotee was sharing to me there is a very small town near Nanded named as Basmat. And during the COVID times, he asked me, can you guess, Prabhuji, how much will this doctor might have earned during this COVID times? And it's a small town. And like, fine, 60 lakhs, 70 lakhs. Prabhuji, 80 crore. I told, what? In a small town. What they did is the MLA, whatever, they asked for aids from the government due to COVID aids. Aids in the sense help, monetary help. And that's what this doctors kind of accept. So they built huge mansions and bungalows and are now millionaires. So there was no Vyadhi those times because of the powerful kingdom, king of powerful reign of the king, and that was because of the leadership. Because the king had no enemy. Prabhupada writes in this purport that the king was pious. Number one, the king was pious, and second, he was obedient to the Lord and the sages. And third, he was Ajatashattara. He was having no enemy. And fourth, he was a recognized agent of the Lord. And therefore, all the citizens of the king were actually being protected by the Lord Himself. So I am Bhagavan. So this is what is needed. Number one, the king has to be pious. He should not be a sinful person. He should not be a sense gratifier. He should have control over his senses. He should not be a king or a leader. If there is a leader, he has to be not a sinful person, not a sense gratifier person. He should be sense controlled. He should have complete jurisdiction over his own self, what to speak of the rest of the kingdom, right? So that's why we call Maharaj Swami. Swami means one who is master of his own self. But nowadays, people are not mastering their own self. They want to master kingdoms and people and levy their rules and taxes and want to usurp as much as possible, make and keep naming parks and hospitals and roads in their names. मरने के बाद भी मेरा नाम अमर रहे. That's their propaganda. That's their kind of thing that they want to do. But here we see the first thing is the king should be pious. Pious means he should not be sinful and obedient to the Lord. Uh, Recently, Prabhuji gave a beautiful class about how to be obedient to the authority. So one should be obedient to the words of the Lord. First of all, we should understand what the Lord is speaking. The biggest of the rulers, they don't even have gone through these pages of the Shastras also. They don't know what the Lord wants, what to speak of obeying Him. And thus they create a big catastrophe. They do violence to themselves and to the people they are ruling to. Recently, I was hearing a lecture, Maharaj was telling that how the king, he is actually supposed to take reaction of anything, any sinful activity that the people do under him, under his reign. 1/3 of it he is supposed to take. 1/3. Just if the people knew what is the meaning of this, they would have wondered whether to take that post or not. But actually, everyone is hungry for that post and position, Maharaj was saying. So, this is the second thing. One is to be obedient to the Lord, and more difficult is obedient to the sages. Because the Lord's inform, what He wants is put in written format, but the sages, they're there dynamically to help, and as is the king. But if the king is not able to appreciate their words, then he will not be able to protect the citizens also. And thus, and also he should have no enemy. That means ajahati shatriha. So from here, we will try to understand some qualities of a leader from the various purports and descriptions of what Srila Prabhupada has given. Various places of Srimad Bhagavatam, wherever there is an opportunity, Srila Prabhupada gives, some idea about what are the qualities of an ideal leader. So we will see it, in a format. Let us try to see it. So the first thing, especially when we are talking of a leader who is a Kshatriya, he should be chivalrous and should be brave. At the same time, he should be forgiving and compassionate. He should be chivalrous and brave. He should not be a coward hiding inside the what is that called? Bomb shelters, bunkers, and ordering the poor soldiers to go and fight and die on his behalf. But the king should stand the front and should lead the whole army. He should fight the war from the front. The Kshatriyas are compared to the Bhuja, in the Varnashrama. Bhuja is the one who protects the rest of the body. Whenever there is a attack to the body, the first limb that protects the body is the hands. That was is the responsibility of the Kshatriya. He is the one who takes pain, takes the injuries. So he should be brave and aggressive, just like Parishit Maharaj saw that there was one person wearing black robes, acting like his king, and is trying to kill and torture Dharani and Dhara, the cow and the bull. Here Prabhupada writes in the beginning that to be non-violent in human beings and to be killer or enemy of the poor animals is what is it? Saturn philosophy. So Parishit Maharaj, on the contrary, he just went and chastised the personification of Kali and immediately subjugated him. And this is the quality of a leader. He takes fearless initiatives. He does not, wait for things to move and then, wonders what to do next. He is having that capacity to take brave decisions. Yet, he is forgiving to someone who is surrendering. He is not a cruel person, not a cruel, person who is making atrocities on people who are helpless. So there are 5 types of people who are helpless: the Brahmanas, the Stree, women, the old age people, the children, and also the cows. So the leader, the Kshatriya, he protects them. And also anyone who takes his shelter when there is a war happening and someone who takes shelter, he forgives them. We see that how in the battle of terrain, when 11 17 16 times Prithvi Raj Chauhan was fighting with the Mahmud Gori. So 16 times he defeated him and he took shelter. He bowed down and told, please forgive me, O king. And he forgave because that's the law. You're supposed to leave him alive. But when the 17th time, Ghori kind of won over Prithviraj Chauhan. Prithviraj Chauhan told, I let you go 16 times. You did not let me go even once. I am not a fool like you. He cut his head on the spot. And then went and also troubled kind of the wives and all the citizens of that kingdom. So even we see in the after Humayun, there was one person named as um, Hemo, I think. So he was the one who took the charge before Akbar, because Akbar was hardly 12, 13 years old. But whomever he would fight against, he would, as soon as that person was brought in front of him, he would chop off the head. So this is not the quality of a leader. Next, we see the leader should be independent and he should be autocrat. As Prabhupada writes, that democracy is like demon crazy. It says many times. Why? Because in the democracy, the leader, although wants to implement certain things, he is not having any power and capacity, because there is a whole cabinet which is always doing, it's worse than hooligans, they will just, it is the biggest office of the country, any country, but then the people there act worse than class 5th children, class 4th children, maybe class 1 children of a village who are not having a teacher. So they act worse. They will break open the mic and throw at one another. Is that the leaders that we are having? And they're the ones who are the lawmakers. So because of these people, it's practically impossible even for a person who wants to implement certain things which are right. The negativities is so huge. The whole ecosystem works against this. Because of that, it's very difficult, to actually make certain proper changes in the society. And it's a fact. Even we see, democracy as such. We have so many countries which are having democracy. One of the neighboring countries. There is only one prime minister in that country who has um, completed his term, and that is also not the complete term, that's also not 5 years, because every time either whenever the prime minister is there, there is either he is assassinated, shot dead, or the president employ dissolves the government, or there is army coming in and martial law, and this is happening practically for so many years. So we see that whenever there is no autocracy, there is problem. And the problem with autocracy in this age of Kali Yuga is people want to become the king, and they want to, because there's gratification of senses, they want to gratify their senses. So as soon as you give them the capacity to act independently, then they really are whimsical. There, because there is no subjugation, but just and on the contrary, the leader should also be obedient and submissive. We see the example of Prithu Maharaj, how he was submissive to Lord Brahma. As soon as Brahma came and told, no, 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 not 3 digits. Prithu, remain, be happy with 2 digits. Get out 99. It's like tough. No century for you. And then he just said, yes, sir. Okay, no problem. Because that's what is a leader. He is not doing anything for himself. He is doing everything for the benefit of the citizens. And later on, we see how the four Kumaras come when Prithu Maharaj is addressing his whole sabha. They are coming, and immediately Prithu Maharaj bows down, washes their feet, completely makes himself submissive in front of them, and asks them questions relevant, pertinent to spirituality. So this is what we see. One is being obedient, and second is being submissive. Being obedient on an administrative level, being submissive on a spiritual level. We see the example of um, Priyavrata Maharaj being obedient to his leader. There was some controversy, but eventually he accepted the will of Lord Brahma. And he did not want to reign a kingdom, but at the same time, as soon as Brahma told, Beta, go and do the needful, he told yes, because his father wanted to take retirement. Kitna kaam karoge pitaji ko? Do your, this is your duty now. So, and we also see the example of Dhruva. He was going to practically massacre everyone of those, who were the ones? Yakshas. But as soon as his grandfather, Manu, came and told, don't do this. In fact, he told, submit to Kubera. So he first of all gave up his anger, next he gave up the war, and next he gave up his ego and went and submitted in front of Kubera. And also, similar example, Janmajay, he was also told, no, don't go to the extremes of killing all the snakes. They are also a species, 8.4 million species. Don't make them extinct. So, although the leader is allowed to be independent and autocrat, at the same time, this is applicable only to one who is having obedience as well as submissiveness. Similarly, we see that the leader is supposed to take strict and strong decisions, like we see the example of Parikshit Maharaj. He is taking a decision, and even we see Pratap Rudra Maharaj, he goes and has wars because that is a need to protect the citizens, because there was always a two side, politically there was problem, because on one side there was this Nawab Hussain Shah, on the other side there was the king Krishnadev Rai from Vijayanagara kingdom, who was always attacking. And practically it is told that now if we go to Hampi, you'll find the whole thing was kind of just khandar, For years together it was like that, because although it was one of the biggest empires, because, this king Vijayanagara King Krishnadev Rai, he kind of offended the king Pratap Rudra Maharaj. But anyways, we see that although the king the leader should be having strict and strong decisions, he should take that. At the same time, his character should be impeccable. He should not be mingling with the character. We see that how there is, Soma. He, in the ninth canto, is given how somehow, because he won wars, and because of that he was very proud about his capacity, and he actually had a wrong relationship with the wife of his guru, that's name is Tara. And because of that there was the son named as Buddha. And this Buddha, he also wanted to have union with a person who was not, I mean, Sadyumna, who turned to a female, right? And because of that, their son was um, um, Aila, Ila. So this Sadyumna turned to Ila, and then their son was Aila, whose another name is Pururava. So even Pururava, how much he was also agitated, and the whole pastime is given in the ninth canto. So we can see, if that leader, if the senior, if the person, he is not having proper character, then it percolates down the whole thing. And now, what to speak of today? The biggest of the presidents of the biggest of the kingdoms, biggest of the countries, most powerful, they're they're being impeached because of illicit affairs. They are, you cannot discuss about their character. They just say that this is my personal life, that is my official life. So character के बारे में बात नहीं करना है इसमें, as that's what their fund is. And what's the problem if I'm getting married to I'm there with my fourth wife, and the fourth wife is aware about his varieties of things that he does, all the hashtag me toos with that leader. On the other hand, we see in Arjuna and Shivaji Maharaj how, although they were given the opportunity to enjoy, but they told, I'm seeing you as a mother. So this is what we can see, how Indra, being the king, also got always, so many times he got infatuated, and because of that had to take the responsibility, not only he, but practically the whole kingdom of demigods. So we can see that the impeccable character of the leader is needed. And then next we can see that the leader, the king, should not demand respect, but he should command respect. We can see the example of how Daksha, he was demanding respect. Oh, you're not standing because of this, you are actually a monkey face, you're this, you're that. Whom? Lord Shiva. Just because he did not pay respect, he was always, he was so much agitated. But on the other side, we can see how, the king actually, Prithu Maharaj, he commands respect. How he commands respect? When the bards, they were wanting to give so much of respect to Prithu. They were saying their glories of Prithu. He was telling, wait, don't do this. I have not even done anything. I just came. अभी अभी तो आया हूँ. Let me do something at least, and then you may speak. But the sages know the future, what he is going to do. So they are kind of taking all the varieties of things that he is going to do. You are going to give us all the varieties of food and vegetation, and you're going to milk the earth in the form of a cow, and then you're going to do so many sacrifices and so many things. They kind of glorify Prithu. He's the first king who established township that way. So we can see that. And next, the king, the leader, is supposed to be responsible, not being irresponsible. So the king is to be responsible. At the same time, he has to be detached. So, like we see the example of how this Prabhupada also in the lecture to this particular text, he gives the example of how the king, Lord Ram was the king, and there was a Brahmana who came and he told that my son, he is dead. And how come my son is dead in front when I am alive? This is something wrong in your kingdom. अरे मैं क्या करूँ? Nowadays a leader may say, तुम्हारा बेटा मर गया, why are you troubling me? But then there is some loophole in your kingdom because of which my son is dead before me. So it's not natural. So this is the, and we can see in the 10th canto also how, woman Brahmana's son was dying practically. Any son who was taking birth was dying. And he was coming and asking the Yadus. So everyone was, not doing anything. But Arjuna took the stand. He told, how, let me see, you have a son and I will see that he does not die. But actually he dies. And then Lord Krishna takes the responsibility that he goes all the way to Vaikuntha and figures out. He goes to every place. He goes to Yamaloka, he goes to Kubera, he goes to various places, and ultimately goes to Vaikuntha, meets Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu says, actually, I stole all the sons because I want to take your darshan. So Lord Krishna is giving darshan to Mahavishnu ji and Karana Dakshaya Vishnu, and then brings back all the sons. And Arjuna is showing his responsibility here. This will take a little time. Okay, fine. So we can see in the 11th canto is given that how Krishna also is being very responsible. His name is given that Govinda Bhuja Guptasya. So Govinda Bhaja Guptaya, Govinda Bhuja, he is having the Bhuja with his arms, he is protecting the whole kingdom of Dwarka. This is Lord Krishna. So what happened is when there was the Rajasuya Yajna happening on at Indraprastha, when Yudhishthir Maharaj was having the Rajaswi sacrifice, Krishna was being respected. And then what happened is when then the gambling match happened, and then the Pandavas were sent to the forest. But here, Salva, understanding well that Krishna is not there in Dwarka now, he attacked Dwarka. And at that time, there was Pradyumna, who was the son of Krishna. He fought a valiant war against Salva. And Salva was having his, when he attacked Salva, then Salva was little, kind of hurt. But then his assistant, Dyuman, came and kind of was fighting against Pradyumna, and he kind of troubled Pradyumna sufficiently, because of which he fainted. And after that, this war went on for 27 days and nights. But when Krishna came, he immediately understood that here these fellows have troubled my kingdom in my absence, and immediately he killed Salva. And as soon as he killed Salva, he did not enter back to Dwarka, understanding well that there is one more um, problem at Mathura. So Krishna is, although taking care of Dwarka, he is bothered about, at the back of his mind, Raja. So Narada Muni informs that there is Dantavakra there at Mathura. So immediately he goes, does not even enter Dwarka. He goes back to Mathura, fights and kills Dantavakra by hitting a gada on his chest, and his everything got smashed, vomits out blood. And then Krishna goes to Vrindavan, and then he sends all the residents of Vraja to the original Vraja, all original Vrindavan, and after spending 2 months of pastimes with them, fulfilling his promise, and then only Krishna comes back to Dwarka. So we can see how the Lord himself, being the king, is responsible both for Dwarka as well as for Vrindavan. And although the king should be responsible, although the leader should be responsible, he has to be detached. And examples of that, we see so many examples. Whole Bhagavatam is filled with so many examples of king who are detached. Examples like Bharat Maharaj, who left the kingdom just like Malavat, just like, one leaves his stool. Anga, Maharaj Anga became detached. He left the kingdom. He did not bother what will Veena do. Parishad Maharaj became detached. Okay, fine, whatever. Ultimately, it is the will of the Lord. I'll go and sit at the banks of the Ganga. Rishabh Dev became detached after installing Bharat Maharaj as the king. Bharat Maharaj himself became detached. We saw that. And then the Prachetas became detached. They took instructions from Narad Muni and went to the forest again. Indradumna Maharaj became detached. He was practicing spiritual life at the top of the hill when Angira Muni came and cursed him eventually. We can see so many examples of detachment, of the king. And the last thing which I would like to tell is the leader or the king should not be selfish like Duryodhan, who is wanting everything to be revolving out himself. Even Dhritarashtra, selfish. My son should become the king, I should become the king. That's selfishness. So he tried everything for so many years to plot against the Pandavas just so that he becomes the king. That's all. So it's only one agenda, that how can I kill them so that I can rule over the kingdom without any competition. But on the other side, actually we see how the king should ideally be. He should be selfless. And the example of being selfless is Maharaj Yudhishthir, who actually was so much bothered that whole of 64 crore people died just because of me, to install me as the king, enthrone me as the king. I don't want this kingdom. In spite of all of that, Vyasdev came. Krishna personally gave him counseling. He was not ready until and unless the person, Bhishma himself, told, see, you take the responsibility now because you are the king. This whole thing has been made not by you. It is Krishna who is doing this. Understand the will of the Lord and become the king. So this is the selfless attitude of the king, and by this selfless attitude only we can see how so much of opulence is there in the kingdom, where there is no enemy, where everyone is free from mental agonies, diseases, and no heat, no excessive heat, no excessive cold. No. Nowadays, even Pune is having excessive heat and cold, in spite of having known for good weather. But what to speak of when there is so much of excessive heat, excessive cold, you know? So that is what we can see in this particular verse. So thank you very much for your kind attention and opportunity that you have given me to serve. If I spoke anything which was beyond my realizations, then kindly forgive me. And if there is anything good, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.